Now, in response to what's happening in Victoria, other states have swung into overreach, many of them as well. Let's have a look at what the states are doing. New South Wales is keeping borders open, just asking people to be sensible. South Australia banned people from Melbourne. Queensland, you have to go into quarantine. Western Australia turning into the hermit kingdom yet again. In the Northern Territory, they are asking people who have been to hotspots to be banned from that territory. The ACT, they're putting Victorian visitors telling them to stay at home, and Tasmania has banned banned Victorians as well. So here we go again. Like I say, it's as though we've learned nothing. I mean, the good news for me is that it's thrown the AFL into chaos, and so the Adelaide Crows will be playing in Sydney this weekend against Richmond. So I've just got to try and reorganise things to get there. The Victorian games will go ahead without crowds. Let's get a reaction from a federal Liberal MP. She's in Canberra at the moment. Katie Allen joins us again. Katie, you must be disgusted at the way the Victorian Premier, acting Premier, and the opposition leader, Anthony Albanese, are trying to blame this lockdown on your government.
Look, I have to say thanks, Chris. This is deeply frustrating and deeply disappointing, quite frankly. There is no doubt that the quarantine hotel system in Australia has done an amazing job keeping Australia safe. It's been done as a national cabinet agreement from the beginning of last year, and there's been 350,000 people, international arrivals, come through hotel quarantining throughout the different states and territories. Less so through Victoria, because last year they put up the white flag saying, well, we can't do this very well. So perhaps that's why they're critical of hotel quarantining, because they haven't actually been happy to do it previously and lift their shop or put their shoulder to the wheel perhaps as much as the other states, particularly New South Wales. But what I would say is, out of those 350,000 arrivals, about 1% have been positive. About 3,800 have been positive. And what's quite extraordinary is that we know with quarantining that there'll always be cases that become positive after 14 days. That's just a known scientific fact. And then you've got to add in there can be human error. So the fact that there's been 17 outbreaks shows that the quarantining system in Australia is absolutely excellent. But we know that there will always be small leaks from quarantining, and therefore we need to make sure contact tracing is of top quality.
Of course,
and we can look to see in New South Wales that's what's happening.
Yeah, of course. In New South Wales, it proves the point. New South Wales has had far greater challenges than Victoria because it's had the lion's share of the hotel quarantine, but it's managed to deal with this. So Anthony Albanese, though, and James Merlino, they're just being so low. Now, I know why the Prime Minister doesn't want to hit back at them. He's trying to keep the National Cabinet together. But this is just so low. It's their own panic and incompetence exposed here, and they try and blame it on Scott Morrison.
Look, I think the thing is that every Australian wants Victoria to succeed. And the federal government wants Victoria to succeed. And each time there's a lockdown, Scott Morrison shows leadership. He steps up and he says, what can we do to help? Let's not do the blame game. Let's see what we can do to fix the problem. But I think the important thing is we need to hold the mistakes to account. And that is so important, that we make sure we learn the lessons of what goes wrong with contact tracing, understand why, even though the federal government is the same across every state and territory, we keep having outbreaks in Victoria. We've had 4 lockdowns now. Why does this keep happening?
But let me jump in again, because if we learn from our mistakes, Victoria should learn that its February lockdown was unnecessary. It did not prevent one infection. It was all contained already. And yet they've jumped the gun here and they're locking down the whole state again based on 25 infections from a known source.
Well, you know, it seems that the problem is in the north part of Melbourne, and that there is an LGA that seems to be where most of the problem's coming from. So, you know, I don't understand why there wasn't early hotspot lockdowns, because that's what basically Gladys Berejiklian has done. She's gone with the hotspot lockdown approach, or the hotspot containment approach. And that is an approach that seems to work in New South Wales. So, look, I know we sent in Alan Finkel to take a team from Victoria up to New South Wales. It's incredibly frustrating to not be able to understand where the failures are occurring, but we need to move forward and we need to get to the other side of this. We know we'll get to the other side of this. It's deeply disappointing we had to get to this point, but let's hope we can make sure that Australia can get back on an even footing. We need to all be Australians together. And what people need to do is get tested, if they've got symptoms,
Indeed.
if they've been in contact with anyone, isolate and get tested. And we need everyone to get out there and get vaccinated.
Indeed, and presumably you and the other Victorian MPs will be largely staying in Canberra, sitting it out in Canberra?
Absolutely. Well, we're not allowed to return because, the lockdown's occurring. We won't be able to quarantine coming back. So who knows how long we'll be up here. Hopefully it'll be just for the week.
Happy days.
We've got a sitting week next week.
Happy days. Thanks for joining us, Katie. I appreciate it.